Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Nothing Good Happens After Midnight, a Suspense Magazine anthology. Contributions by Joseph Badal, Linwood Barclay, Reese Bowen, Jeffery Deaver, Heather Graham, Alan Jacobson, Paul Kemprikos, Shannon Kirk, John Land, John Lesquois, D.P. Lyle, Kevin O'Brien, and Hank Philippi Ryan. Edited by Jeffery Deaver. Narrated by Matt Godfrey and Emily Sutton-Smith. Introduction. I've had a soft spot in my heart for the hour of midnight ever since, at a young age. I knew that by then my parents would be asleep, and I could pull the blanket off my head and continue to read Ian Fleming, or Tolkien, or Edgar Allan Poe, without the risk of detection. Or suffocation, though I did keep the bedside table light off and continued to plow through pages by the less obvious beam of my Boy Scout flashlight. I wasn't stupid. It also didn't hurt my affection for that transitional time that one of the films steering me toward crime writing was the gritty 1957 noir The Midnight Story, set in San Francisco and starring Tony Curtis and Gilbert Roland. So it was with unbound eagerness that I leapt at the chance to edit this volume of suspense stories, describing incidents of the curious, the eerie, the disturbed, the violent, that occur in that netherworld after the witching hour. Yes, I know that purists claim that title belongs to 3 a.m., but I'm the editor, and I'm bestowing it upon 0-100 hours. Another soft spot? For short-form fiction. We readers are long-distance travelers when we enter the world of novels, taking our time as we get to know characters and bask in their journey, their perils, their wins and losses. Sometimes, though not necessarily, we're treated to a big wallop of a twist at the end. A short story doesn't have the luxury of seducing us during the course of such leisurely transit. It has to grab us immediately with a high-speed plot, and in the end, deliver a gut punch of the unexpected. And the more spine-tingling the atmosphere the author has created, the better. All of the tales in this anthology deliver that punch and tingle that spine, and do so in a fascinating variety of ways, reflecting the wide-ranging talents, themes, and styles of our contributors. You'll be reminded of Conan Doyle, Edgar Allan Poe, O. Henry, Agatha Christie, and Stephen King, as well as episodes from The Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Let's meet our crew. Rarely has a ticking clock been put to such keen effect, before, at, and after midnight, as in Alan Jacobson's 12:01 a.m., as the moments count down to the execution of a particularly nasty serial killer. We learn that there's much more to the crimes and the man's history than meets the eye. Jacobson's sharp, compelling series character Karen Vale, ace FBI profiler, joins forces with some familiar faces in the Commonwealth of Virginia in a breakneck race to save an innocent life before time runs out. The back and forth between Vale and the soon-to-die killer will also keep you on the edge of your seat. You'd think it would be tough to write about the start of an entire social movement in a short story, but Kevin O'Brien has done just that in the witty Cell Phone Intolerant. The story hits all the right buttons. Forgive that. And makes us smile with satisfaction at the exploits of Ed, a dyspeptic divorcee, who, to borrow from pop culture of a few years back, comes up with his own variation of "we're not going to take it anymore." I, for one, recognized a bit of Ed in myself, and I suspect you'll feel the same when you finish the story. Nothing is more exotic, and potentially eerier, than an overnight train ride. Think of From Russia with Love or Strangers on a Train, not to mention Agatha Christie's classic. Hank Philippi Ryan's All Aboard perfectly recreates the claustrophobia and suspense of such nighttime travel on the rails. The setup is indeed Hitchcockian. A savvy public relations expert overhears something not intended for her ears, which sets the plot in motion. In addition to being a page-turning thriller, Ryan's contribution asks this telling question: is not information as powerful a weapon as a gun or knife? In Gone Forever, Joseph Badal takes us front and center to an event that is all too common in the news: a mass killing, this one in a church. We relive the event through the eyes of a stalwart police officer and the man she's interviewing, the shaken priest whose congregation was the target of the assault. I always like to see a story writer's skill at work in coming up with a title that does double duty. That can be a surprise in itself. In Badal's tale, the phrase "gone forever" comes hauntingly home to roost on the last few pages. Imagine this. You're on the phone with a crazy man. You don't know his identity, and you're the only one who can stop him from a killing spree. How would you play that scenario out? This is the edge-of-the-seat premise of Linwood Barclay's twisty Night Shift. As a former journalist, I know how accurately the author has recreated the atmosphere of a late-night newsroom, a place that is invariably placid and sleepy and dull, until it absolutely isn't. What would a midnight-themed anthology be without a visit to a graveyard? Heather Graham's Midnight in the Garden of Death has us flipping pages in rapid order to see what happens next in her tale of teens whose on-a-lark sleepover in a cemetery doesn't go exactly as planned. Graham's fine depiction of the characters takes us straight back to those days when our world could be divided into the inside kids and the geeks. And the portrayal of that fraught time is as spot-on as the action is heart-racing. Every suspense anthology needs a classic private eye story, and Paul Kemprikos has contributed a great one with The Sixth Decoy, which stars his immensely likable series character Aristotle Socarides, ex-Marine, old salt, and part-time PI. In this tale, Sock is hired by a wealthy recluse to track down a missing sculpture, carved by an artist who can only be described as the Michelangelo of wooden birds. This story will remind you of John D. MacDonald, the creator of Travis McGee, at his best. My first novel was not in crime, but horror, and occasionally I'll pen a story in that genre, as I've done here. In A Creative Defense, I aim for supernatural gothic in telling a tale of a horrific murder in a small New England town. The inspiration was this: trying to imagine the expression on the jurors' faces when the defendant's attorney pitches a particular argument as to why his client should not be found guilty for the slaughter. And just to try something a little different, the midnight, after which something bad happens, doesn't refer to the time, but to something else entirely. And no, it isn't a cat's name. I would simply be wrong to publish an anthology based on the theme of midnight without a Cinderella story, and I'm pleased to report that we have not one, but two, and both written by the same author. In After Midnight, Rhys Bowen has given us a clever retelling of the classic fairy tale of old, though we meet a protagonist who's a bit different from the one we're familiar with. Her second Cinderella tale is set in the modern time. Suffice it to say, no mice, pumpkins, or slippers figure in this story. I've made up a variation of the old saw, "No good deed goes unpunished." It reads like this: no bad deed goes unpunished. Or does it? In John Lesqua's whip-sawing suspense offering, Easy Peasy, plots aplenty unfold as we watch the shenanigans of school kids, both innocent and otherwise, spiraling out of control. As always, the author takes us deep inside the motives of each character as he shifts masterfully from one point of view to another. In D.P. Lyle's Tonic, a couple of good old boys in rural America are cruising the back roads in an ancient pickup and simply pursuing the American dream of trying to make a living. Who could blame them? And, a more cogent question, what could go wrong? Oh, a thing or two, especially when they decide to explore a new business model and attract a little more attention than is wise. The cast includes a great small-town sheriff and a medicine man you won't soon forget, try though you might. It was a dark and snowy night. In Tonight's the Night by Shannon Kirk, we meet George, an outsized ski resort trail groomer, known for his expertise on local versus tourist etiquette and his tall tales, which may not be as fantastical as his joshing fellow workers believe. With his mind on romance and on the fierce blizzard, George learns that a dark past that has dogged him for years still has more on the agenda during the course of this one harrowing night. After reading this switchback-filled story, you may think twice about waxing up those skis and heading for the slopes. John Land takes us to the mean streets of New York City in ATM, where we meet Venn, a young man who's bottomed out and is desperately seeking to parley his last few bucks into something resembling a break. When reality and fantasy appear to blur, Venn's life takes a dramatic turn, and he sets out on a mission at the behest of... Well, I'll leave that for you to find out. Land evokes the after-midnight atmosphere of the boroughs of the city so well, you'll feel you're walking along the streets in person. All right, enough of the appetizers. Now it's time for the main course. Just let me offer some advice before you dig in. For your own comfort, I'd make sure your doors are barred and windows locked, and maybe you might want to have a flashlight ready, Boy Scout or otherwise, in case the power mysteriously goes out at an inopportune moment. That is, at least if you're going to be reading our collection after midnight. Jeffery Deaver. 12:01 a.m. A Karen Vale short story. Alan Jacobson. Phelps Correctional Center, Culpeper County, Virginia. Stephen Ray Vaughan, no relation to the famed musician, sat on the edge of his death row cot. His music was a tune of a different sort, his cauldron of creativity emanating from death and mayhem, and finding new ways to wreak havoc on a city. With his time remaining on this earth melting away like a glacier in the throes of climate change, he was now reduced to digging out the dirt from under his fingernails. Why? He had no goddamn idea. He was due to die in 120 minutes, and nothing really mattered anymore, did it? Did it ever really matter? Yeah, it did. Back when he was hunting for his prey, he had to present himself as an upstanding, clean-cut individual. He had to play the part. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to sit undisturbed in his van in parking lots while selecting the 16 women he would eventually murder. His van. He missed that thing. He didn't know exactly where it was at this moment, but he knew who had it. Fortunately, he had disposed of it before the police caught him, so it could not be used as evidence against him. And man, was there a lot of evidence in it that could be used against him. As it turned out, the one victim who got away went to the police and turned him in. It was very difficult to commit the perfect crime, although it did happen on occasion. People did get away with murder sometimes, but there was usually at least one major mistake a guy made that proved to be his undoing. Stephen Ray Vaughan was no exception. For him, it would be the mistake of a lifetime, one he could not take back. But so be it. He was like a star in the nighttime sky, burning very brightly before going supernova. He had made peace with that. Not that he didn't want to continue living, but sometimes you just had to accept your fortune. It took him a dozen years, but he had finally reached that point. Time was short, and his lifespan was now shorter. But at least he had lived a hell of a ride. And unlike 99% of the individuals populating this planet, he had made plans to ensure his legacy continued on, at least for the near future. If all played out the way he figured it would, he would be forever immortalized in movies, television, books, internet memes, and American history. Stevie Ray Vaughan may be famous, but Stephen Ray Vaughan? He was infamous. Vaughan glanced over at the sterile black-and-white clock across the way and wondered, was that enough? With so little time left to live, it would have to be. 3 hours earlier. Deborah Meade gathered her reusable grocery sack against her chest and trudged toward her Subaru. Taylor, her 12-year-old son, sat waiting in the car playing a game on his iPad, not wanting to be seen with his mother shopping for groceries. As she walked through an aisle of vehicles in the parking lot, a van door slowly opened. She heard it rather than saw it, the sliding scrape of metal rolling on its track. As she turned her head in the direction of her car, something grabbed her shoulders and yanked her backwards. She felt her body falling through space. But before she knew what was happening, her head struck something hard, and everything went black. Deborah awoke slowly, at first only vaguely aware that something was wrong. She was lying on her side, rocking to and fro as the vehicle she was in moved down the bumpy road. With her vision and foggy thoughts clearing, she realized that her arms were drawn back behind her, and her wrists were bound tightly with tape. She tried to speak, but a dry wad of cloth was shoved into the back of her jaw, and a muffler was wrapped around her lips. Deborah forced some words from the deeper reaches of her throat. She meant to say, "Why are you doing this to me?" It probably came out sounding more like a groan, or even a poor attempt to hum a tune. But the man turned around and glanced over his right shoulder. His right eye sat at half-mast, and the brow was missing its hair, replaced by a thick pink scar. It gave his face an evil, tortured look. "Everything's going to be fine." "Fine?" she tried to say, the disbelief no doubt registering in her furrowed expression. "I just need your help with a few things. Then I'll drive you back home. You'll be on your way, and I'll be on mine." Deborah looked in his expressionless eyes and knew she was in trouble. She did not think she was going to make it out alive. Her thoughts turned to Taylor. His father had passed 2 years ago from a freak brain aneurysm. Now the boy was on the verge of losing his mother, too. "No," she told herself. "I can't let that happen. Somehow, I have to find a way out of this." Fairfax County Police Department, Fairfax, Virginia. Stalwart homicide detective Paul Bledsoe had just finished a call with the medical examiner when he noticed a shadow engulf his desk. He looked up to see James Kearney, about 6'5", with an afro that was picked and puffed out, making him appear even taller. At 5'8", Bledsoe always felt like he was talking to Kearney's collarbone. "Sir, a question?" "James, call me Paul. I know you're a brand spanking new detective, but we're colleagues." "Yes, sir." "Paul, let me see your badge." Just let me see it." Kearney dug into his deep pants pocket and held up the medal. "Whoa, buddy. That's too friggin' bright. You need to tarnish it a bit. People will think you just got it." "I did just get it." "You and I know that, but better if others don't." "You're joking, right?" "Yes, James, I'm joking." "What did you want?" "Caught this case. Not sure what to make of it. I mean, I know what to make of it, but I think it sounds like a case Detective Argus handled." "And?" "He's retired, so I can't ask him." "Okay, let's hear it." "Well, we got a 911 call that a woman went missing. It's only been a few hours, but the lieutenant said I should look into it, instead of waiting the 48 hours. I don't deal with missing persons cases, so if that's what the Lou wants—" "No, I mean, I don't think it's just a missing persons case. Argus didn't work missing persons either." "So you're thinking this is a homicide, that the woman has been murdered?" "Yeah." "Anything to back that up?" "Nothing except, well, a feeling." Bledsoe nodded slowly. "Sometimes that's all we've got." Bledsoe's neck was killing him from craning it back so far to see Kearney's face. He gestured to the chair at the adjacent desk. "Grab that seat. Tell me what you're thinking." "So, if I remember Argus's case, It was that serial killer, Stephen Ray Vaughan. Bledsoe nodded. I know a fair amount about that one. I was told you were friends with Detective Argus. Still am. But, yeah, we toss shit out about our cases all the time, ran stuff off each other, theories, that kind of thing, like we're doing now. Kearney scratched the back of his head. So I'm thinking, what if this missing persons case is really a Vaughan case? Vaughan is in a max security facility, death row, ain't him. No, I realize it's not him, but let's take a step back. Is there any proof at all that a murder has been committed? No, it's just a feeling. Right. Okay, go on. Bledsoe normally would have blown the guy off, told him he's wishing too hard for a big case to cut his teeth on, that this is probably just a garden variety missing persons case, and the woman will show up in a couple of days. But he did not want to shake the new detective's confidence. He was not going to give him a free ride, either. Yeah, so the woman left her kid in their car and went to get some groceries at the Smart Lot Center in Bethesda. Smart Lots. That's where Vaughan shopped for his Vicks. No pun intended. Happened around the same time of day as Vaughan abducted his Vicks, too. Bledsoe squinted and thought. Go on. Woman was around the same age. I mean, she's brunette, and most of Vaughan's were blonde, but let's put that aside for a moment. Consider it on the side. Kearney hesitated, then realized Bledsoe was making a joke. Right, he said with a quick nod. Okay, so that's a lot of coincidence. Bledsoe waited, but Kearney sat there, then shrugged. That's it? Same age woman goes missing from the same kind of parking lot? No. The same Smart Lot Center that Vaughan got his second victim. Same one. Yes, sir. Paul. Bledsoe pursed his lips and bobbed his head left and right. Could mean nothing. I already told you, can't be Vaughan. What if it's a copycat? Bledsoe leaned forward in his creaky desk chair. Can't rule it out. Except we don't even know if anyone's abducted her. She just went missing, right? Yeah, but her kid was left in the car, alone. How old's the kid? 12. Did they have a good relationship? Just starting to work up the case, but according to Taylor, yeah. He said they were starting to argue a little more the last few months, but she's a good mom, he's a good student, doesn't do drugs, not a problem kid. So it doesn't make sense she'd just disappear on him, willingly. My point. What about other stresses in her life? Husband? Deceased. Some kind of medical issue. Died suddenly, unexpectedly. Suspicious? No, nothing like that. Something with his brain. The mom. On medication, psychiatric issues? She's young, 37, healthy. There's no reason for her to walk off on her own and disappear. That you know of. Right. So far. It's just that in Vaughan's case, he didn't keep the women around very long before killing them. Bledsoe grunted. Less than 24 hours, which is why I don't want to wait. You know how to work up a homicide case? Bledsoe held out a hand, stopping Kearney's mouth half opened. That was rhetorical. Tell you what, let me talk with the Lou, see if he'll let me spend a few days on it with you, see where it takes us. I'd like that. Caught yourself a good first case, James? Guess so. He clapped his hands on his knees. So now what? You're going to try to get a hold of all security footage in the area of that Smart Lot's parking lot. I'm going to call someone who knows more about the Vaughan case than I do. Detective Argus? Nope. He's on vacation in Greece. The FBI profiler who consulted on the case with him. Karen Vale was staring out the passenger window, thinking about Stephen Ray Vaughan, when her phone rang. Since she and her fiancé, Roberto Humberto Enrique Hernandez, were driving in her car, the Bluetooth speaker automatically took the call. Bledsoe, what's up? Missed your voice. Oh, yeah? You're on speaker. Robbie's driving. Hey, big guy, how's DEA treating you? Treating me great. It's the cartels I seem to have problems with. Bledsoe chuckled. How's your knee, Karen? Healing. Itches. Pain's almost gone except when I run. This soon after surgery, you're allowed to run? Of course not. I guess I missed more than your voice. You crack me up. She cracks herself up too, Robbie said. She's a terrible patient, you know that? Bledsoe laughed. Terrible profiler, terrible patient. Nothing surprises me. Vale frowned. You realize I'm still on the call? I do. It was minor arthroscopic surgery to clean things up from my last operation. Scar tissue, some frayed cartilage. I'll be fine. Good. 'Cause I got a case here. Not mine, exactly. I'm helping out on it for a few days. Rookie detective caught the case. He's convinced his missing woman is the victim of an abduction, possibly a copycat. Who's he copying? Stephen Ray Vaughan? No shit. Well, too soon to say. I mean, really too soon. Bledsoe briefed her on Kearney's theory. And yet, Vale said, you called me. I didn't want to shut him down. Kearney's got promise, and... Well, you and I have had feelings about things in the past. Sometimes they turn out to be right. One thing that's not right is we're now finding that copycat is a misleading term. They're not copying per se, but looking to successful killers for inspiration and guidance. Some serials, Dennis Rader was one, research other killers who've been caught. They don't duplicate everything because they don't want to go to prison, so they pattern themselves after a particular killer, but modify certain things to avoid the same fate. Improve on the crime. Yes, and making it their own to stand out. Some admit they were inspired by others. Some deny it, even though it's clear they chose a specific offender as a role model. Keyes read true crime books about Bundy and avoided the mistakes Bundy made that led to his capture. Okay, so Deborah Mead's kidnapper. He may be patterning himself after Vaughn. We should crack open his file in case there are some details we don't remember. Go through the media reports. Talk to Vaughn before he bites the dust. He's being executed in less than 2 hours. You kidding me? I knew it was soon, like sometime in the next month or so, but shit, 2 hours? I'm on my way over there right now with Robbie to witness it. I'll see if I can get in to talk with him. Bledsoe groaned. Jesus Christ. Hey, at least there's a shot. He hasn't been euthanized yet. Euthanized? He's being put out of our misery. There was silence. Robbie gave Vale a scrunched face look, conveying something like, probably don't want to repeat that again, ever, to anyone. Karen, Bledsoe asked. You sure you're up to questioning him? I mean, you're not still on narcotics, are you? Never was. Motrin first day, then gutted it out. Go do your thing, don't worry about me. I always worry about you. You mean you always worry about me screwing up your case? Bledsoe laughed, as did Robbie, but neither refuted her assertion. You want me to find out if he has any connection to a potential copycat killer, Vale finally said. Whether or not he was grooming someone else. Exactly. I'll do my best. Let's hope you can make him talk before he fries like an egg on an iron skillet. He's being lethally injected, Vale said, not electrocuted. I thought we just covered that. Get your metaphors straight, will you? He does paint the picture, Robbie said. That he does. She scrunched her nose. I don't think I'm going to eat a fried egg ever again. Thanks so much, Bledsoe. Any time. So, while we cozy up to Vaughn, Robbie said, what are you doing tonight? Bledsoe snorted. I'm grabbing a beer, frying up an egg, then getting some sleep. Vale rolled her eyes and shook her head dismissively. Robbie chuckled. Hey, Paul, Robbie said. You want to meet us at Phelps Correctional? Nope. Vale slumped in her seat. Really? Really, I'm tired. It's late. What if I can get something out of Vaughn? He didn't keep his Vicks around very long. I remember. So, if we get some actionable intel, it would be a time saver if you're there. Coordinate. Shit, Karen. Robbie, she did it to me again. Robbie glanced at Vale. Did what? Guilted me into changing my mind. Not easy to do. Maybe because she's right, Robbie said. You both suck, Bledsoe said. I'll text Robbie when I get there in case you're in with Vaughn. Meantime, I gotta see if there's a chopper that can take me over to Phelps.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?